the low and lowest level users. If they create a strategy for clearing the mission and sharing it, they would be able to rapidly improve the average skill of their users. That is the upbringing project. He also asks them to keep working on both the project of information collection and the upbringing project. On the other side, while walking with his group, Seonghoon says it takes a lot of money to build up a group. Ellie asks him if he is trying to make a guild, then he must know that it might work in the beginning, but there are only beggars and normal lower users. He says she is not wrong, he would prefer he could find someone who would be willing to risk their lives on command. Maybe he should make a cult, he says. After that, he again comes to the bar. Jerry asks him what he wants to drink. But Seonghoon asks him to just get to the bulk of the conversation. So then Jerry tells him the forced mission that is coming up, compared to all other forced missions, will not be a simple dungeon clear or a hunting mission like before. He also tells Seonghoon that the upcoming mission only requires him to survive for a month. Whether he gets all his limbs amputated or he can barely breathe, as long as he has survived until the end of the mission, he can clear it. Seonghoon interrupts him and says something seems off, as Jerry is telling him that there is not going to be some strong monster or something. Jerry says there is no way. Although there will be monsters, he is sure that Seonghoon will be able to handle them himself. Seonghoon says although the last forced mission was S-class, he was able to use the body and skill of NPCs. Overall, there were plenty of things helping him out, so if they're using their bodies, even the top rankers and massive guilds would have trouble with the B-class missions. They are supposed to survive for a month, and the missions have only been ranked as a B+ class. Jerry says yes, he is correct. If the only purpose was to survive, B class would be excessive. That's why there are two conditions. The first condition is murder. If he kills another user, he automatically receives a meal's worth of food and water within his inventory. If he has to work with someone else, only the person that dealt the most damage would receive the reward. Seonghoon asks him where the mission will be held. Jerry informs it is on an island near the mainland that cannot be accessed. It's pretty big for an island though. Seonghoon says the sound of that leaves a bad taste in his mouth. Jerry says the gods have said that they don't want people who are just strong. This mission focuses on survivability, caution, bonds with others, humanity, and other factors. He further says this mission will also have mission points. He can complete sub-missions to obtain points. The items that he has collected during the mission can be traded in for points as well. If all users gathered together to agree and everyone survived without a single casualty, then it would be a miracle. Seonghoon says if Jerry wanted something like that, the first condition should not have been added. Jerry says it is only in extreme conditions that they see the true nature of humans. They will start the mission soon, and he hopes to see him again after a month. Then they say goodbye to each other. After coming back, Seonghoon says he was fine with being a woman once and only once. He informed me through the status window that he had obtained a map. The map is automatically updated. His current location will appear every 24 hours. When he sees the map, he assumes water drops are water sources and fruits are food sources to avoid starving to death. He comes to know that the submissions are gold, green, and red with 500 of them each. Gold missions are related to doing good like helping the injured, saving those that are in danger, and sharing items with others. Green missions are related to survival and include starting a fire, creating a shelter, and not starving for 3 days. Lastly, the red missions are related to anything that could be described as evil like murder, doubt, and betrayal. He then decides to get ready for the mission. He knows in mountains and forests like this, having armor on will just tire him out faster. He is a magic swordsman. He has always played like a thief, giving him an edge on this mission. His lowest grade thief skills have been activated. Due to the skill rank and lack of information, he cannot determine his location. He has activated an endless inquiring mind, a high level of attention, and intermediate discerning skills. He says this is perfect, and that spreading out his skills into different fields is finally starting to pay off. He then gets ready to go. He comes near the pond and drinks water from it. The taste of water feels good to him. He thinks he should be able to check its safety. He sees plenty of good things on the status window. A true good man describes not killing anyone for a month and advises him to complete more than 450 missions related to doing good. Once completed, he will receive the rare title, Good Man. He will also receive 100,000 points and a divine mark. while a true survivalist asks to complete more than 150 missions related to doing good. Once completed, he will receive 100,000 points and a grand survival kit. A truly evil man informs to kill more than 666 people in a month. He is asked to complete more than 450 missions related to doing evil and complete less than 50 missions related to doing good. Once completed, he will receive the rare title, Evil Man. He will also receive 100,000 points and a Twilight mark. Seonghoon says none of them seem that easy. It would be impossible to clear all 3 missions. If he had to pick one out of the 3, of course, it would be the Evil Man. He then takes out the Elder Hydra poison bottle. Although it's been diluted, it's still elite grade. He then mixed it in the pond's water, causing water pollution. He knows the entire pond won't turn into a fountain of death. The status window tells him with his intermediate grade poisoning, he has detected that he has been poisoned. The rank of the poison is of rank low and type persistent. The effects are health degradation, hallucination, and decreased self-control. He then used an antidote to heal himself. He climbs up the tree to hide himself to see what happens for now. He feels 1 month is long at first, but it's much shorter than most would expect. He knows killing monsters and killing humans are 2 completely different things. In situations like these, there should not be that many insane people who would just go around and murder. Just like in movies, they will start working with each other and try to survive until the end. However, that's too positive of an outlook. He thinks if he slowly poisons them like this and causes issues among groups, it should not go as peacefully as some would hope. He then sees 2 groups arrive on the opposite sides of the pool. The yellow-haired man, the leader of one group, says it looks like things are getting tense now, so they decide to drop their weapons first. But the other group's leader says he won't trust them and would not drop their weapons. So the yellow-haired leader says if they want to fight, it can be done. But the only thing that would happen if they fought is they both lose out. So he advised him to just get some water, put their weapons, and talk peacefully. They drink water and say the water tastes good. After that, both leaders sit together and discuss with each other. The yellow-haired man tells the people in his party are those who just happened to meet him while searching for some water. Both of them plan to work together instead of fighting each other. Seonghoon, who is observing them from the tree, says it looks like things are not as bad as he expected, and he guesses the effects should have just started kicking in. He then jumps down from the tree. On the other side, a yellow-haired man gets up and asks others what he is going to do from now on. The other one says since they found a decent place to stay, he was thinking of searching for food. The yellow-haired man also says if that's the case, they should work together to get some food then. The more people they have, the better it would be. A red-haired girl interrupts them and asks how long they have to stay there. She also says since they got water, they should go out and start looking for food now. She also advises to hunt for meat or get some berries. One of the leaders thinks she is relaxing by the pond as if she is on vacation or something. He stops her from washing her feet in the drinking water. She says her feet hurt, she is just doing it quick. Then yellow-haired man says they will split the 9 people here into 3 groups. 2 groups will look for food, and the other group will stay here at their base camp. They will make sure that they rotate through these rules as time passes. He also says unless their opponents start coming at them from the get-go, so they should try to avoid fighting as much as possible and approach this situation peacefully. Another member says getting food won't be a problem, they have all hunted monsters before. A girl with a yellow shirt agrees with him and says especially since they have maps with the locations of berries and animal habitats. So the 2 groups start the journey to find food. One member said it looks like there are rabbits that reside in this area, so they might as well have roast rabbits for dinner. They continue their journey while the sun sets down. The yellow-haired man says the map says that there are apples in this area. The girl with a yellow shirt says, but they have not found a single one. Another member says his neck is all sore now from looking up at trees so many times and asks others to start head back. The yellow-haired man says they have not found anything to eat yet though, but the girl says if it gets darker, it's going to be harder for them to get back. She also tells all of them to have emergency rations in their inventories, so they will be able to live off them for a day. When they come back, the yellow-haired man says that nightfall is coming, and he is wondering why there are not any preparations. Another member asks the guarding team about their weapons, as this is not a vacation. When the red-haired girl asks if they have found any food, they say unfortunately they were not able to find anything. They say it is fine, they can just start clearing the area together now. Some members advise to take a break as they are tired. The leader says he knows everyone is tired, but they just put in a little more work. After that, they can all take a break together, so they start work. After some time, the leader also feels he is more frustrated and tired than usual, and thinks it may be because of the weather. He has never lost his computer like this before, he feels. The second team who went in search of food also came back and said they strayed too far, so it took some time for them to find their way back. The first team asked them not to worry about it, as it has not been that long since they came back either. The member of the second team says he was able to catch one rabbit. They all become happy to see food, but no one agrees to cook it as they say they have never cooked a meal before. Then the yellow-haired man asks them to stop fighting over this and says they will just cook it together. On the other side, Seonghoon says this island did not look that large at first glance, but he has been moving for over half a day, and to think he has not even crossed a 20th of the island. Since the grade rises based on the number of missions, there have been a lot of duplicate missions. He has cleared about 13 so far, and that is quite good. He then comes back to the first pond he found and sees those people discussing the food. He says as those people are still arguing, they must have underestimated hunting. On the other side, a yellow-haired man can't find a method to cook rabbits, so he asks everyone to take out everything in their inventory and put them in one place separately. Since low-grade inventories can store a maximum of 10 different items, if a red-haired girl has no food, she'd be able to store these 10 items. Seonghoon comes to know that the leader is using his brain. After some time, their leader, a yellow-haired man, brings a cooked rabbit and says although he has killed plenty of monsters, he has never tried butchering them. He tried to clean up their guts and grilled what he got. When others taste the food made by him, the red-haired girl says it is not tasty and there is not much meat either. Another says as long as they get some food in their stomach, it is fine. Then the leader says sorry as he has never learned how to cook before. Seonghoon also says cooking is not as easy as it seems unless one learns a variety of skills like cooking, distinguishing ingredients, and slaughtering animals, among other skills. He says although the maps provided have been marked with sources of food, once he arrives in the area, it will mostly be hard to find because of the dense vegetation. Even if anyone does happen to find food, if he keeps eating food made by someone bad at cooking, everyone will naturally arrive at a single conclusion. After eating food, the leader says it is time to choose people to stay awake during the night. He says they will divide up into 4 pairs, and each pair will take a 2-hour shift, so all agree on this plan. Then the 2 start guarding them while others lay down to sleep. Seonghoon assumes there are 3 camps in the northwest direction around 4 kilometers from here, and even more in the south. There are 8 light sources nearby, with one big one in the middle. He knows anyone can tell that's the large-scale alliance. He then jumps down from the tree and decides to start up the things. He comes close to the campfire where those people are staying and observes there are 10 people in total, with no rancor. Then he takes out his sword and kills people while they are sleeping except a girl. After that, he says he managed to complete the mission of killing people without anyone noticing, as well as the mission where he has to leave a single survivor when 4 or more people are gathered. He knows these 2 missions are chain missions that allow him to clear other missions. As long as this woman continues to survive, he can clear the Devil's Existence and the Unseen Monster missions as a set. After that, he goes away from there, and soon he finds another 3 more groups of users. He decides to set up a couple of traps and leave. It looks like the sun is starting to rise. The status window says he has completed the sub-mission Human Hunter. He says having more than 3 people get caught in traps, the clear condition for it was not that difficult. However, the fact that it is still pretty late and the mission has been completed is somewhat strange. He believes there must be someone else who is as diligent as he is. Soon he sees another man walking nearby. That person, although having clothes and shoes, is wandering in search of food. That person has thief-only skill wild instinct. He also notices the presence of another living being. Seonghoon feels that person is coming towards him as if he is trying to get rid of him. That person decides to get out of here using a smoke bomb. But Seonghoon appears from his backside and attacks him with his sword. When he killed that person, the elimination of the competition mission was completed. He was surprised at the moment when his opponent took out his sword and swung it. He was able to use driving steps to barely dodge the attack and counter. He wouldn't have been able to win this easily if he was not already hurt. As a reward for killing over 15 people, he has already racked up over 5 million guilds and enough food to fill up an entire section of his inventory. This is an unexpected sidechain for him. Since he learned so many skills, one weakness he has is that his skills are relatively low-ranked individually. So now he can use this money to hone one skill like the rankers do or increase the ranks of all his skills by at least one. On the other side, Myrini is also doing her mission. She says good, survival, evil, and the final missions for all three look like a pain to clear. Let alone one of the highest difficult missions, Island of Hope, where he has to build a boat and escape this place. She thinks Sa Jongwon might be able to complete the villain quest, or will that be a stretch if they are not able to meet up with Ellie? She admits that she is not good at reading maps, but she sees a big mountain pretty close by. So she decides to set it as her temporary destination. When she reaches there, she sees many people fighting with each other. She completely ignored them and just passed by. One of them stops her and asks who is she and also shows his anger that she just considered them as pushovers. Myrini hits that man hard, who then falls. Others become shocked to see her skill. She asks them not to come close to her and says she can make an exception once, but she has no intention of forgiving them the second time. But those people do not listen to her and come to attack her. Then she uses her both swords and soon kills all of them. She guesses it is unreasonable to form true unyielding kai in her first awakening state. She thought if she gathered enough sword silk and merged it in the air, she might have been able to produce unyielding kai. She says ever since she fell into this world, she has only been through actual fights, so she thought it might be time to start building up her strength. She reaches into a cave and decides to train in isolation for a month. For this purpose, this cave should be perfect. Luckily, she has a skill that is meant for this sort of situation. That skill is image training. Image training requires the focus of the mind for at least 30 minutes to activate, and over a long period, it also increases the mana and wisdom of an individual. When image training is activated, hunger and thirst manifest 100% slower. She will train for a month and make sure to achieve unyielding kai on her sword. After 10 days, Seonghoon realizes that the things he had done were not things he should have done either. Over the last 10 days, he has done the evil deeds of killing people, poisoning the well, and setting up traps. The series of evil missions was almost like a guideline for his evil deeds. All the villainy he has committed so far was one-dimensional, but thanks to this, he can almost predict the ripple and chain effects of his deeds too now. He sees many people are still drinking poisoned water. He knows since the mission began, for the past 10 days, they have been drinking poisoned water, so they won't be capable of surviving this. Of course, some people did notice something was off midway, but the amount of water they brought in their inventory was limited, so even if they were suspicious of the public water, they still had to drink it. He again opens fire bombs and lightning bombs on the people who feel it is another enemy attack. They ask each other to get up their weapons, but they fail, because fire is burning them badly. Seonghoon, wearing the metal dress covering his face, comes in front of them and attacks continuously. One of them asks warriors to try to block at least one attack. The other says hold on, they will get back up once their scouts come back. After some time, Seonghoon decides to withdraw the fight and turns back. He says of course he doesn't have any allies here, but it would be hard to notice that in a mess like this. Those people run after him to capture him, but they are stopped by their leader, who tells them that they won't be able to care for the remaining people if they leave. He orders them to just deal with the fire on the barrier first. A total of 8 people are dead, and all of the remaining living people are severely worn out. On the other side, Seonghoon, after coming back, believes those people would have been caught by his traps if they followed. He says if his intention was just to kill, he wouldn't have gone through all the struggle of preparing arrows and magic for an ambush, or worn armor for that matter. The purpose of what he is doing now is to plant the seed of conflict and suspicion anyway. The next day, he keeps some food under the tree. Few people arrive there in search of food, they become happy to find food. Then, Seonghoon comes to the village of the murderer group. It is a little scrappy, but it is starting to look like a village now. He thinks it is probably because he spread around 400 people's rations around this area. Thanks to that, he was able to finish the good deeds. Now there won't be a problem proceeding with the evil missions either. Since the good deed is also having that effect, this is a good thing. While inside the village, after getting food, one member says they found enough food for 30 people. If they all eat just a little less, they can all manage their hunger. Another says they are starting to find less and less food by the day they have come here, and at this rate, they will start to run out in 2 days. Then another says if they are going to get less food, then they should start killing others for this purpose. When the mission started on the island, everyone was focused on finding their food. As a result, there were not many in the murderer group at the time. But those who did not work for their food and took the food that Seonghoon left instead started to understand that compared to eating the tasteless fruits and meats found on this island, killing another person was much easier and had much better rewards. The next morning, when all the people gathered, they came to know that 8 more people had lost their lives because of that group who ambushed them. The girl with red hair advises to attack them back, but the yellow-haired leader warns them and tells them the purpose of forming this group is to avoid killing other people. There are other options apart from fighting, like negotiations or treaties. Then a white-haired man grasps him and says they started with 100 people, now they are 60, and he still wants to solve this through talking. Further, he says his group has been on the outskirts, so he would not understand how vicious those guys can get. Then red-haired girl, Lee Juhei, interrupts them, calls herself the leader of the group, and asks others to follow only her orders. She says no matter what anyone else says, they are going on the offensive. If anyone has a problem with that, he may have fun surviving without any food. The white-haired man appreciates her idea and says that's a good choice. The yellow-haired man says if they attack, regardless of whether they win or lose, they will suffer large losses. That's why he wanted to leave that as a last resort. Later, the leader girl is standing alone. She is worried about why they have been discussing for so long. They must go just and attack already. Suddenly, Seonghoon comes in front of her and gives her a map. When she asks what is it, he thinks she does not even know how to read a map. Her stupidity has no limits. But honestly, he is happy that her being stupid can be a benefit for him. He knows on the first day because she tried to hide the fact that she had food, her reputation in the group went down significantly. So if he left her alone, she would have had to act alone and not be able to work with the others, but through his help, she became the leader of the group. Those who were initially skeptical were forced to trust her as she kept bringing food day after day. A leader with a bad personality is better than starving after all. She again asks him, what is that paper about the map? He says it has the exact location and structure of the murderer group base she is going after, and the formations that the guards and people will be holding. When she asks what she has to do with it, he asks her to show it to the leader of another surviving group or someone that can use their brain. They will know what to do with it. Then she understands this is trustworthy information. She brings that map to the white-haired man and gives him, who then says they will ambush that murderer group tonight. Later at night, they all set their positions to attack the murderer group. The white-haired man says the murderer group is within a 10-minute radius, and it appears that they have not prepared any defense against ambushes. There seem to be only around 10 or fewer guards. Most of them are sleeping. Even the camp is easy to find because their bonfire is big. Other members say they can't even sleep with the fire on because of constant attacks. But these murderers are quite bold. The white-haired man asks to surround them and ambush them. He orders them to leave anyone alive and they won't be able to sleep in peace until the mission ends. He says this is for their safety and it is justified revenge. Then Lee Juhei says they will split their unit in half. The ambush unit will attack the village while the guard unit will surround the village and catch anyone who tries to escape. But the yellow-haired man says right now they have a mere 200 people. If they split the troops, each unit will get even weaker. But Lee Juhei says all she needs to do is to follow the orders of that masked man. On the other side, Seonghoon is watching them from the trees. He says there is no reason for him to risk himself and go down yet. Rather, he should start his real mission. Then he jumps down. While on the other side, in the base camp, where the murderer group is staying, 2 of them are guarding the camp while others are sleeping inside. Those who are standing outside also become tired. One of them asks the other to stand on guard for him too later if he has the energy to stand. He says everyone is struggling to even move after drinking the poisoned water. The fact is that the 2 of them are the most energetic ones. After killing everyone in the murderer group and taking their food, they will be able to eat until they are full. Suddenly, Seonghoon arrives there and kills both of them. He creates lightning through his magic book and using his sword, kills all the remaining people there. After that, he realized magic boosted by 200% and skill power increased by 30%. With these two enhancements, his talisman arts have gotten stronger. He believes they are pretty useful. It is going as exactly as he planned. Splitting up those who were poisoned by water in each group was worth the effort. He needs to finish off the 9 groups before the sun rises, so he moves to start again. On the other side, when another group attacks people, one injured man requests to talk with words. He calls himself a ranker. He says if they let him go, he will forgive their mistakes, otherwise they all have to pay the price after the mission is over. But the white-haired man does not believe him. That injured person says he is a member of Hetafa, a senior member. But the white-haired man kills him instead, and says no wonder he was so desperate. This must have been his last life. No matter if it was a first or second life, ranker or not, he was setting on splitting his head in two. He says because of their attack, half of their group died, and the other half barely managed to survive. He then orders everyone to clean up the area and take their belongings and food and orders them to meet in the middle of the village in an hour. After that, a man comes close to him and says if he is free, he will listen to him. As the leader Lee Juhei, a red-haired girl, sends him a quick message. She said that many of them escaped, and she asked if his guys could lend some users to hunt them down. The white-haired man becomes surprised to know that 100 of their people have escaped. When they come back, there are dead people everywhere. He asks his fellows to be careful and start searching the area as if they can find any survivors. Soon he is informed that there are no survivors. All of the gathered supplies have disappeared as well. There are no traces of the culprit in this area. However, seeing that there are many signs of magic being used here and the amount of blood splattered, it is assumed that they have a warrior among their ranks. It is also said that there were around 31 people that were left behind, so it is suspected that the attackers were not a small group either. He again orders them to search the area and don't let guards down and let the thieves know that they will need to work harder. He knows the remaining members of the murderer group were not the attackers as they escaped toward the west. Even if they wanted revenge, they would have to have taken the long route around the forest in the middle of the night, just to attack them. He says that is highly unlikely. Meanwhile, Lee Juhei's group finds food in sacks in one place and thinks about where all of this food came from. One of the members advises them not to let their guards down, it might be bait. The yellow-dressed girl says now that the murderer group has been taken down, they are the largest group in the southeast forest, so no one could just attack them without thinking. The member who comes forward to take the food says they still have 20 days until the end of the mission, and it is good that they find such precious food. Then Lee Juhei orders everyone to stop and says from now on, anyone who touches the food will be punished. She orders to move these sacks to the village first. Anyone who participates in moving the food will get their inventory searched, so do not think about stealing. But the yellow-haired man says this is too suspicious to take back to the village. He has a bad feeling about this. He gives an idea to first think a little before the decision. She becomes furious and asks why he always talks back to her. She says that realistically, they are not going to survive 20 more days without food, and that is why they need this food. He says that he will not eat this food at any cost. He thinks this is the first time he ever got this angry. To think that he has been transported into a world like this, it is surprising that he has never been angry before. He then says he was going to try his best to keep his anger under control, but he will die of stress at this point. Other members ask each other to do something to stop them, but a girl says it is not good to get involved though. Lee Juhei says how he dares to look down at her. She takes out her weapon, but he stops her, asks her not to make him angry, and warns if she messes with him one more time, he won't hold back anymore. He then says it would be funny if all of this happened, and he still decided to remain within this group. Then he says if anyone else wants to leave this group, he is welcome. Lee Juhei says they won't give him the food, but he asks her to take the damn food and stay quiet. Few people leave this group with him. Lee Juhei asks others not to be worried and says it will be better for them since they will have fewer mouths to feed now. The members who left with him say they know he did this because he was angry. But he replies that if stayed with her, he would have died of stress. He says that from now on, they will be leaving the forest. On the other side, Seonghoon feels better when he looks at the edge of the forest consists of a desert. The border between the two looks like it's been made with a ruler. He then sees his stats and comes to know that he has completed over 200 evil missions, along with 6 good missions and 211 survivor missions. Suddenly, a few people come there and surround him and ask him to reveal himself. He asks them to calm down and solve the issue with discussion. They think he is making fun of them, but he observes that 2 archers in the front, along with 2 magicians and 3 warriors surround him. A total of 7 people so he can handle them. Then he attacks them, and soon they all fall. Those people think this time they have messed up with the wrong person. He again says it is still not too late to start talking. It would be beneficial for them as well. When they ask what he wants now, he says it is good to talk about this over a nice meal. Later, while eating, they say thanks to him for the meat, and it's been so long since their last meal sniff. He asks if they like the taste of food. There's no way the food he made with his cooking skills could taste bad in the first place. One of them says they can't thank him enough, they were about to die of starvation at any moment. Seonghoon says no problem. There is nothing to gain from fighting anyway. It is better to help each other out. Other people think he did not kill anyone while subduing them, and he also cooked them a delicious meal as well. According to them, he is the true definition of an angel. While Seonghoon thinks it is going just as he has planned, he asks them if they have a map of the wasteland or know what kind of people live here. They discuss with each other that it would be wrong if they do not tell him after all he has done for them a lot, as it is not a big secret either. Then one of them says they will show him the map they have drawn out. He says from an oasis to the location of metal slimes, they have marked down all important locations on the map. The biggest group in the wasteland is composed of about 100 people. But there are more than 5 rankers, including a top ranker. When he asks about the top ranker, they tell him it is Kang Muhan from Hedefa. But there is also a group against them. Past the wasteland, there is a forest of darkness, and they seem to be fighting over a big boulder. The boulder is right in between the border of the wasteland and the forest of darkness, so it should be easy to spot. Seonghoon thinks if they are fighting over a mere boulder, it means there is something more to it. He knows one of the missions was to clear 5 dungeons. It means that there are at least 5 dungeons here. It seems that there is a dungeon near that big boulder. He says thanks, and to repay them, he will give them a tip. He says it seems that they are struggling to find food. If so, it will be easier if they enter the forest. When they hear about the forest, one of them says there are terrifying rumors about that place, from the number of traps set to the murderer group that hunts down players. Seonghoon says he is not sure, but he heard that the murderer group was wiped out a couple of days ago. The groups that are left prefer peace over violence. The biggest group seems to be led by a female magician named Lee Juhae. Then they again say hi thanks and apologizes sincerely for attacking him at first. He says that is all right. But he is happy from inside that his mission of fanning the flames is in progress. He knows with Lee Juhae's personality, she will hide the food and then cause a fight within the group. He then decides to check the boulder and moves from there. When he reaches there, he sees the boulder is even bigger than most buildings. He decides to wear his camouflage since it is an open area. He hides near a rock when he sees some people coming towards his side. One of them says Mr. Megwan-sung said that something moved here, so they should check it out. Seonghoon thinks he is careless and then activates his intermediate discerning skill. He observes them and says with a status like that, they are definitely at the top of the normal. Especially the girl in the far back, she has a dexterity of 100. He then sees a man standing just above the rock. At that moment, all the others rush towards one side as someone attacks them. He thinks it might be the group they are fighting against, so this is his chance now. He reaches near the village and sees it is a full-fledged village at this point. There a man is asking others to be careful. Their enemies keep attacking little by little, so they can't even get a proper sleep. Everyone is asked to be on the lookout, as there might be another ambush tonight. Seonghoon says as expected from a big group, Hedefa has its hierarchy set. He observes most are guarding outside the fence, so he can move towards the boulder. So he reaches there and sees a cave inside the boulder. He can't back away now, so he decides to check it out while he can. The status window tells him he has entered the path within space. If he passes through the space with a strange energy, he will be teleported to a different location. He says he can't risk his safety going in here, so he should come back another time. Suddenly, he is attacked by someone who poisons him from the back. The poison type is immediate and it causes paralysis. That person asks him not to move and reveal himself. He changes his plan and enters the path within the space. A strange energy is surrounding his body. While Mr. Sung, who attacked Seonghoon, feels gloomy as he lost him. He says it was too dark for him to identify that person. Then he sees the blood of Seonghoon, which was dropped on the ground. He touches it, and his wild instinct is activated. He comes to know that the prey's ran is top tier, and intelligence is sensed within the blood. He can track the prey for 1 hour. He feels the prey's rank seems to be matching his rank. That means the owner of this blood is a ranker. He thinks the ranker was Kim Ye-hyun, and says no wonder he backed away so easily this time, trying to play tricks on him. Then he sets the target. Tracking time is increased to 3 hours. In the event he meets with the prey, all abilities increase by 5%. Then he comes back to his people and tells them Kim Ye-hyun disappeared into the path within space just a moment ago. When people ask how is it possible a mere priest can go alone, he says besides the priest, Ye-hyun is also a top ranker. He says they had to restock soon anyway. If they can kill Kim Ye-hyun on the way, it could not be better. He asks them to get ready to start the hunt. On the other side, Seonghoon enters the volcano cave. He thinks he may have managed to escape, but they might find him soon. He is influenced by the environment. Due to the extreme climate and temperatures, all his abilities are reduced by 10%. The damage from the fire affinity skill has increased by 3% and damage from the fire affinity skill has increased by 5%. His health drop rate has increased by 30%. A volcanic cave is a mysterious dungeon that has not allowed mere mortals to enter. Due to long exposure to fire, this area has become a place beloved by fire elementals and certain monsters alike. These monsters tend to stray away from humans during their everyday lives. Seonghoon activates his intermediate grade magic resist skill. He sees a god there. He says he better test out how effective his skills are after receiving increased flame affinity damage. He creates bomb spells. His attacks and defense stats adjust accordingly to the rank of the book and his intelligence. The status window tells him a low-grade stone of flame is a stone that contains the essence of flames. His weapons and armor will receive a bonus flame affinity. The long-term use will increase related stats. He says the items that can increase stats just by consuming them are considered priceless. He then consumed the low-grade stone of flame. He is informed that he will feel the essence of flames within his body before it quickly disappears. If 3 low-grade stones of flames are consumed daily, his magic stat will go up by 3 after 100 days, so he decides to eat 3 stones for 100 days to just pass this mission. He then hears the voices of people who came after him. Mr. Sung has arrived with hunting dogs and a few people. Seonghoon runs from there as he does not want to reveal his identity, so he needs to cover his face for now. Dogs are sniffing, trying to smell his presence. They say that bastard Kim Ye-hyun is so fast as he escaped again. Mr. Sung asks them not to underestimate Ye-hyun, as he is still one of the greatest priest rankers among the current users. He says now he has no choice except to catch him before time is up. He orders everyone to run. Then they reach the western mountain. One of them asks others to be careful. From here is the forest of death. Everyone that has entered this area has gone missing. There has to be a strong monster or a dungeon here. Suddenly, they are attacked by something. On the other side, Miss Ellie's vision is restored. She says this sudden vision change is giving her a headache. She is happy that at least she will be able to eat something other than fruit today. She remembers the words of Seonghoon when he said if she is interested in buffs and debuffs, being a cleric might be better than being a magician, so she should try changing her jobs now. Ellie says although witches have weak attack spells, they have the benefit of using buff, debuff, and other miscellaneous magic spells, so she thinks it might be better to switch jobs to cleric if she wants to focus on buffs and debuffs. She says the problem is there a need to strengthen her attack spells just because she is a magician? She knows it is not just pure strength and power, but giving the dead the ability to fight back with a wave of her hand and making even the healthiest of people become sick, completing tasks that can't be explained with logic. She says that's what she considers to be real magic. That's also the reason why she learned all those spells. It is also said that to use all the spells one has learned to the extreme and create her domain to have her area, the witch's domain. Illusion magic causes people to wander around the area and debuff their stats. Vision seizure and aiming spells are perfect for snipping. along with magic crystals to supply magic to the demonic path canon. As time passed, and as more people entered the area, they started calling this place the Forest of Death. She thinks the volcano is going to explode soon. Whatever the case, she decides not to lower their guard, as this is an unknown world where no one knows what might happen. She only needs to pack up her bag and get as far away as she can from this place. After spending 16 days on the mission, Seonghoon says he did not even fight that much, but he feels like he is going to die of heat stroke at any given moment. My stamina consumption has been increased by the environment, and he can't do much because of the heat itself as well. Mr. Sung and his fellows have seen him and chased him for more than 2 days. At first, Seonghoon put priority into running away, but feeling annoyed after enduring the extreme heat, he changed his plans. On the other side, Mr. Sung feels this man is not Kim Ye-hun. Aside from the mask he wears, the weird fighting method of having a book in one hand and sword in the other was definitely not the fighting method of Kim Ye-hun. He thinks if this person is not Kim Ye-hun, then it would have been logical for them to return to the village and strengthen the defense, but unfortunately, they cannot go back. Because the path within space is a one-way portal. To return, one needs special magic. He then says although they don't know who he is, they will hunt him down no matter what. 3 days have passed after entering the volcanic cave. Seonghoon is still running as the cave is so big. He has not been able to get any proper rest ever since they started chasing him day and night 3 days ago. At this rate, he might die of dehydration or lack of stamina because of the environment. Mr. Manhwa and his fellows are almost there to catch him. They throw an explosion of arrows towards him. But in return, he threw a knife at the fired bullet. Mr. Sung has been poisoned with a paralysis poison. He says they don't know what kind of bastard he is, but they finally get to see that face of him. He says they remember his face now and will kill him at every cost. Seonghoon feels this is the end of his life. Then the boss of the volcanic cave, Volcanic Serpent, appeared. All abilities have been decreased by 30% from the serpent's presence. He says a lot of humans seem to visit him these days. They all are shocked to see that the boss is speaking. He stops them from talking and says if they keep squabbling, he might accidentally kill them from the annoyance. He further says last time it was Kang Mu-han. Mr. Sung confirms is he talking about Kang Mu-han. Then the boss says that means they know him, and they must have come here to help him. He asks them to hurry and bring him the core of the blaze. Once they do, he will reward them. The volcanic serpent who longs to become a dragon has decided that using humans who have come to the volcanic cave is more efficient than killing them. He orders to find and bring the core of the blaze to the spirits and monsters in the cave. They will be given a reward for the completion of the target. Mr. Sung asks Seonghoon not to be so happy and says his time to live has only extended by a little. Seonghoon laughs and says if he wanted to, he could kill him right this moment. The boss again asks them to stop talking and follow his orders. Soon a forced safe zone has been made. Seonghoon says the most important thing right now is rest. He couldn't properly activate the skill effects for devoted readers since he was being chased. He knows since all the abilities he has built up are reset, if he does not read for 3 days, he needs to read, even if he has to force himself. Other members see him reading a book and say it seems he's not right in the head. Suddenly, Kang Mu-han arrives there with his team and asks them that he told them to guard the village while he went into the dungeon, so what are they doing here? One of them says it's all because they were trying to catch the masked man, Seonghoon, who sneaked into the village. He asks Unsung how this happened. Unsung says while Kim Ye-hun was in the path of space raiding, he misunderstood the masked bastard for Kim Ye-hun and chased him instead. Then Mu-han asks Priest what brings him here too. Priest says there was light defiance, so he in turn lightly disciplined them and asked Mu-han don't need to worry that much. Mu-han says the path within space is the first place he found, and they prepared enough for the raid before coming in here, so naturally the village's defense must have been weakened. Plus, because of Baek Unsung's misunderstandings, there were fewer people to defend, thus making the village easier to occupy. Then he says to Priest that as expected he can never get along with him, even if he tries. The priest says maybe in that sense they get along unexpectedly well. He feels the same. Seonghoon interrupts them and says there is no benefit in provoking each other when they can't fight anyway. Kang Mu-han says he does not know who is he, but assumes that he is ready to face the consequences of interrupting them. The priest asks him not to be so angry and says there is nothing wrong with having a conversation. He asks Seonghoon about his name, but he asks them to call him Ghost. Kang Myuhan asks him to stop joking and tell them his real name. He also asks him to take off that stupid mask, but the priest says seeing as he uses a pseudonym and wears a mask, it means he won't tell them of his identity even if they force it out of him. So it is better to just skip to the point. Myuhan asks him what he wants to say now. Then Seonghoon says he wants to propose a peace treaty with each other so long as they are in this cave. Myuhan asks why they should form a peace treaty with him. He says it is simple, if they don't form a peace treaty with him, he will attack them. One of the members asks him if is he seriously thinking that they won't be able to defeat him alone when they have Sir Kang Myuhan and the guard by their side. Seonghoon says he does agree with his statement, however, it's a different story when they consider the top ranker Kim Ye-hyun. He then calls the priest with the name of Kim Ye-hyun and asks does he wants to fight with Myuhan. The priest says well, he doesn't want to fight, but that can change depending on the situation. Seonghoon also says he is a pacifist. He too would rather not fight if he does not see the need to. Mr. Kon-sung says to Myuhan that he does not know who this guy is, but considering just his skills, he is guessing he's in the top 100 of rankers. Myuhan also thinks they don't know his exact abilities, but if he is at least in the top 100, then it is the worst case scenario as he's stronger than their expectations. He also worries that the strong ranker is teaming up with Kim Ye-hyun. This is also an alarming situation. Then he agrees and says they will do what he has proposed, but he must keep in mind that this is his last luck. Seonghoon says he will remember that. Later, Kim Ye-hyun says it does not seem like he has a good relationship with Kang Myuhan, since they have a peace agreement, so they must get to know each other more. But Seonghoon says sorry and says he is more comfortable on his own. But if there comes another opportunity, they can talk about this again. Kim Ye-hyun thinks there is no guarantee that he will attack only Kang Myuhan. It will probably be better to be the most careful he can. He then asks him about his plan to hunt. Seonghoon says he will go about it alone. Kim Ye-hyun says then they should separate here. Then he says good luck and leaves. While leaving, as he touches with Seonghoon observes his abilities and says he has exceptional buff abilities and even mysterious top-ranked level healing skills. He was wondering why Kang Myuhan did not attack Kim Ye-hyun, but this must be why. Then he sets his priority to make a map of this dungeon. 5 days later, he says there was a reason this dungeon was B level. The overall difficulty is low, but the occasional named and middle-grade boss monsters are certainly strong. Still, thanks to the buff and keeping himself busy, he was able to perfectly create a map. He observes there is no exit here. The dungeon boss tells him that there is no exit here. Technically there is one, but humans cannot pass through it. He then tells that to Seonghoon. Seonghoon says the said exit was a cliff. Even with all the skills he perfected, rock climbing was not one of them. He says the longer he takes to escape here, the less time he has to clear the mission. A true evil man. He has to clear the mission above a level 3 and use his wish to escape from here. On the other side, Myuhan asks Unsung how much loot have they collected up to this point. He is being informed that 2 highest grade, 124 high grade, 955 intermediate grade, 1 in 200 low grade, and 1 in 100 lowest grade. Myuhan guesses the level 5 is too hard. There exists a total of 3 monsters in this dungeon. The volcanic serpent is located in the center of the dungeon, the Knight of Apocalyptic Flames resides in the Ava Falls, and the high-grade spirit exists in the Hell of Flames. It is likely that if one defeats the knight and the spirit, but the serpent, he will be able to acquire an essence of hellfire, and if he defeats the highest grade monster nearby, he can probably earn a highest grade flame essence. Myuhan is also informed that there is nothing they can do about it. They don't have a healing, a buff cleric, or a mage in their team. Myuhan knows there is no remarkable dealer on Kim Ye-hyun's side either, so it will be a struggle for them too. He assumes they will be a lot slower than them. He then sees the group of Kim Ye-hyun also sitting in one place. He asks Unsung let's get their minds off of that for now and go to sleep instead. But Unsung says he had something to say. When Myuhan asks him what he wants to say, Unsung says he has not seen that ghost with Kim Ye-hyun's team. Kang Myuhan says there is no need to be concerned about it. If he died here, they benefit from it, and if he did not, it is also not a harm to them. And if he foolishly tries to attack them, he will have to pay for this then. Seonghoon arrives there at that moment. Kim Yahyun's member informs him that they can't even go hunting properly with this many supplies and equipment that they have. Then Seonghoon asks them to make a deal. He asks them to give him all the supplies they have now. It'd also be great if they enchanted him as a bonus. Kang Myuhan says that's funny if Ghost thinks he has something of equivalent value to all of that. Seonghoon says he will give them 26 high-grade essences. They are surprised to know that he collected 26 high-grade essences on his own. They say they were a party, and it took them 15 days to barely gather 75. Kim Yahyun says if the Ghost is serious, they can clear the Serpent's mission with a level 4. So he accepts his offer. Seonghoon says that he will take his share of the deal, and asks him to use the rest of his magic power to give him an additional buff. Kim Yahyun thinks even if he gives him an additional buff, it will only increase by about 1 or 2. He also thinks about what this Ghost is thinking of doing. He could be aiming for the highest grade essence. He says, however, he lengthened the duration of the buff. It can only last a maximum of half a day. It's impossible to earn 10 highest grade essences in that time. He thinks Ghost is probably aiming for the essence of Hellfire. His fellows say when they attacked the Night of Apocalyptic Flames, they had 2 injured even with him there. So how could this Ghost do it all by himself only? Yihyun thinks Ghosts are most likely comparable to the people within the top 10 ranking skills. Seeing as how he handed over all his high-grade essences without hesitating, he might be able to defeat the boss monster. Further, he says that he has already said this before, but they shouldn't start any unnecessary conflict with a Ghost. Even if he is in the wrong, they should back off, since there is a possibility that he could become their party member. On the other side, Seonghoon thinks it's been a while since he made a trap. His skill level went up to a rank quickly because of this. Usually, this would be impossible, but he is perfectly prepared for the flame characteristics of monsters, and his abilities have been increased due to the blessing. The Possessed Book is a non-combative skill that allows him to move the book whatever he wants. However, he can now use it in combat because of the opposite extreme. At this rate, he could defeat the Knight of Apocalyptic Flames. After some time, Lava Falls boss, Knight of Apocalyptic Flames appears. Due to the Knight of Apocalyptic Flames' intimidating stance, all abilities are decreased by 10%. Intimidation has been rid of with Holy Blessing. The abilities of Seonghoon are restored. He then decides to attack the Knight. Later, on the other hand, the Knight says he can feel the human that attacked him running right towards him. He says this is the same feeling as when he fought the volcanic serpent. When Seonghoon comes in front of Knight and says it seems he is too heated, he should think to chill a little and ask him to talk while playing tag. He then creates hellfires and observes, as expected of a monster, that this Knight is still alive after getting hit with hellfire. He thinks in that case, it would not be possible for him to face the Knight head-on. So he runs back. He says that although he has 29 traps left and 29 gathers enchanted with divinity magic, so it is important to see how long they last. After running a lot, he stops and says now he is tired of running and asks Knight to have a fair and square fight. He also drinks holy light from the bottle, which embraces his body and heals his damages. When the Knight asks about this fair and square fight, he says as both of them have a big power gap, he thought he ought to just knock down his stamina a whole lot. He also demands some buffs from the Knight. He says he has used a lot of materials to make traps, so this is pretty fair in his opinion. But the Knight disagrees and says he will kill him. Then he attacks him, and Seonghoon realizes he is still strong. Due to driving steps, his tap dance skill level has increased. His ballet skill level and boying skill level have also increased. He says thanks to driving steps, the choppiness of the dances is not a problem anymore. He then keeps attacking by maintaining his rhythm, and soon he sees it works. That is the first proper hit since the fight started. He was right to use driving steps as a way to connect his moves. He decides to dodge and attack at the same time. After some time, he becomes successful in passing out, but his magic power is out too. He forgot to loot items. He thinks he must be out of his mind. The reward he gets is Essence of Hellfire, which is a unique intermediate piece containing the energy of flames. When used on a weapon or a defense item, a flame property bonus can be earned. When taken, stats will increase, and it can be refined as inner alchemy when a special skill is used. He also got Ruby Earring, which is a rare item, and it contains firepower, but has the potential to be much more powerful if refined. Power is increased by 5% when using flame-type skills. All magic powers can be increased by 3%. The third reward he received is Longsword of Rage, which is made of regular black steel but contains strong fire energy. This rage can be used once a day. When it is activated, strength, dexterity, and stamina are increased by 10% for 5 minutes. He also got Ancient Mithril's gloves, which are made from the threads of Mithril. All damages blocked with the gloves will be decreased by 15%. After getting all these rewards, he thinks for a B-grade dungeons boss, the rewards are kinda disappointing, but he must be satisfied with this. He decides to put on the gloves and the earrings and sell the longsword. With this much, he should be able to get a sizable fortune. On the other side, Kang Moo-han and Kim Ye-hyun are still waiting for him and say that the bastard can't keep hiding. Kim Ye-hyun decides to bring him onto his side no matter what when he appears. Finally, he comes back. Kang Moo-han says it was getting boring waiting for him. Kim Ye-hyun also tells him he is quite late. He says it is an individually done quest, so it doesn't matter if he is late or early. Kim Ye-hyun says that even though there are not even 3 hours left until the end of the mission, it seems he has all the time in the world. Seonghoon is surprised to know only 3 hours are left. He thought he would have more than a day left at the least. He was passed out for too long after the battle. He thinks even if he does leave here, he has 2 hours left to kill 130 people, to be able to finish the mission of a truly evil man.